First, I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to the Conservancy meeting. And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Chair Hume, not yet. Vice Chair Witernitz. Supervisor Scales Preston.
Here.
Thank you. Supervisor Mashburn is absent. Supervisor Dollywall.
Here.
Morning. Supervisor Allen.
Here.
Board Member Peralt. I believe she will be absent. Board Member Sandoval.
Here.
Good morning. Board Member Udang. Board Member Matsumoto.
Here.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do have a quorum with 6. Let me also check in with our ex officio members from Senator Cabaldan's office.
Staff present.
And from Assembly Member Wilson's office. No. And some liaison advisors today.
Steve Chappelle.
Here. Good morning.
And Ray, Protection Commission.
Good morning. Okay. And then we, that is all is there any other liaison advisors here that I unseen? Okay, well, thank you. That concludes our roll call.
Any introductions? Anybody? Please. Hi.
I'm Baker Holden III. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I was asked to attend by Paul Souza.
Great. Thank you and welcome. So with that, any public comment? Agenda? None? I see none. All right. Let's move to our first action item, and that is board elections.
Good morning.
Staff is taking that.
Usually Campbell does that. Hi,
Yeah.
Campbell.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm not there in person, and sorry most of my staff is masked. I'm the victor. I tested positive for COVID last night, the first time and I ever have, which is sad. But not feeling bad, but I wanted to attend today via remotely to not spread any further. So it is that time of year to do board elections. Welcome, everybody. I think we can do this without Pat here, but we'll see how it goes. First, just want to start by thanking Supervisor Hume and Member Winternitz for their service over the last 12 months. We really appreciate your leadership. You know, our practice is that we request the chair and vice chair to serve up to 2-year terms, and we stagger the terms so that either the chair or the vice chair turn over every year. So Supervisor Hume has served 1 year at this point, and he's expressed a willingness to continue to serve for his 2nd year. And Member Winternitz has actually completed 2 years of service. So again, we thank him for the last 24 months of being our vice chair. I have reached out to Supervisor Allen, who has graciously expressed interest in serving as our vice chair. So thank you very much. And unless there are questions or other thoughts, I would entertain a nomination at this point.
So I as vice chair, I would like to nominate Supervisor Allen for vice chair. Looking for a second.
Second.
And just to be clear, we're doing both the chair and the vice chair, right?
We do it
I
at
think-
once, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, is it now my campaign speech? I'm happy to serve. And I would like to point out, I'm a public health nurse. So Campbell, thank you for not being here today. And thank you to the staff who are masking. Appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and call roll on that one. Supervisor Hume, we still have as absent. Board Member Winternitz.
Yes.
Board Member Scales Preston.
Yes.
Board Member Dollywall,
Yes.
Board Member Allen.
Aye.
Go ahead, make that. And then, Board Member Sandoval?
Yes.
Yes. And Board Member.
Yes.
Okay, we have 6 yeses, so we do have a vote. The motion carries.
And sorry, Jessica, I wasn't able to hear the motion. That was for both the Supervisor Hume and that was both together, yes?
That's
Okay.
I think for clarity, we should do.
I'll go
another-
ahead and read the
Because
motion.
your nomination didn't include expressly the chair continuing, so I would do a second motion and a second vote, just to clean
So the second motion.
for the chair.
You'd like to,
For
should I read out a possible
Yes,
motion for
please.
this? Okay. Board Member Whitman's moved, seconded by Board Member Matsumoto, that the board approve the nomination of Pat Hume as the chair and Sheila Allen as the vice chair of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta Conservancy Board for the fiscal year 24-25.
Well, and in this case,
Oh,
everybody
my
did Supervisor Allen, so the nomination can just.
We just voted you to be chair.
See what happens when you miss your exit?
I've never done it, so I wouldn't know.
I pulled a Leo. That's how I'm gonna refer to this day.
25, 26.
Caltrans.
Did I say 24?
Oh.
25, 26. Thank you. We vote again?
Yes. just-
Okay. Supervisor Hume, this
I-
is just for you.
Okay, I assume I then.
You and then
Yeah.
he is vice chair.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And then Winternet.
Yeah.
And then Scales Preston.
Yes.
There we go. And Supervisor
I'm
Dollywall
just masking. it.
Yes.
Okay.
and Supervisor Allen
Aye.
and Board Member Sandoval.
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, Matsumoto.
Yes.
Okay, this one has 7 eyes. You got more eyes.
Wow.
And
I'd like to
motion
thank the Academy and my mother.
carries. Okay, done.
Right. I assume that was the totality of item 4.
Correct. You're
Okay.
right.
We're on to item 5, the meeting summary from May 28th. Are there any additions or corrections?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Okay, have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And do we need to do a roll call vote?
We
have folks
do,
online?
because we have
Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Hume,
Aye.
non-vice chair Winternet. Sorry, I'm gonna have to change that. Member Winternet.
Yes.
Board members, Scales Preston.
Yes.
Sorry, your supervisor. Supervisor Dollywall.
Yes.
There we go. Vice Chair Allen.
Aye.
There you go. Member Sandoval
Yes.
and Member Matsumoto.
Yes.
Okay, 7 ayes, the motion carries.
Excellent. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? I should have called for that before the vote. Okay, seeing none, that brings it to our executive officers report. Mr. COVID. I mean,
Good. Mr. COVID, Mr. Vector. Well, good morning again, everyone. It's good to be here and be able to provide the update to you, at least virtually. I want to start kind of on a sad staffing note. Sarah Lesmeister, our Ecological and Community Programs Manager, has accepted a new position with the California Water Commission as their Deputy Executive Officer. Her last day with the Conservancy was June 11th, and we're in the process of backfilling that position. She was just a wonderful employee, as you all know, for over 5 years. And I just like to say that her predecessor, Laura Jensen, actually left the Conservancy about a little over 5 years ago to be the Deputy Executive Officer of the Water Commission. And then when her boss retired, she was promoted to be the Executive Officer. And now Sarah has gone to be the Deputy Executive Officer. So we're clearly creating a nice pipeline of highly qualified professionals to go work at the Water Commission. But we wish them both well, and we know that they're both going to do an excellent job in those positions. Also, Chelsea Martinez on our staff, our grants contract and board liaison, started maternity leave on July 16th. So she will return hopefully in November. So kind of bittersweet, but we wish her a happy and healthy birth and a good maternity leave. So moving on, just a quick note about ethics compliance training. If anyone has still not completed their ethics training, please do so if you can. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Jessica Adel. Wanted to provide an update on the climate bond solicitation. So we presented at the last board meeting our general approach to how we were going to run Proposition 4. We have actually completed the bond solicitation notice and proposal application materials and are waiting for to open the solicitation pending final approval of allocations of Prop 4 funding, as well as the legislature regarding the Administrative Procedures Act exemption. So the legislature decided to hold off on making determinations about allocating Prop 4 until August. But there's also their Prop 4 did not include exemption language similar to other bonds that exempted the grant guideline process from having to go through the official rulemaking process. So, excuse me. So the expectation is that, again, the legislature will address that issue, but we won't know until probably mid-August to late August. So pending allocation and the resolution of that issue, we anticipate probably opening the solicitation late August, early September. We're looking forward to it. So hopefully that gets resolved. And we know there's a real need for the funding out there in the Delta, and there's some projects that are ready to go. So we're hoping that all comes to fruition. The rest in the staff report is really background from the last time I'm on Prop 4. So I won't go into that in any detail. Quick update on the 25-26 budget, our general budget, our allocation for staff and facility is about the same. Not much change, and again, just waiting for the Proposition 4 to be addressed later. A couple of quick administrative updates. We've submitted 3 significant reports that are due to the state. We also now have a records retention schedule, which is great because we have a lot of old records that we need to try to sort through. And I'm happy to answer any other questions about administrative updates.
Okay,
Moving
thank you.
on. Pardon?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
I thought that was the conclusion.
Yeah, I'm kind of rushing through, so feel free to stop me if there are any questions. I'm very happy to report that our Architectural and Engineering Authority has been approved as of July 10th. You all will recall that that's been a very long process. I want to thank all the staff that worked on that. It was just kind of a heavy lift and took a long time, but what that will do is it'll allow us to go ahead and move forward with the Franks Tract. That's the next round of analysis for Franks Tract, which has also been on the agenda for many months. You actually will see under agenda item 11, a request to actually allow us to enter into that agreement and start that process very soon. A little bit about grant applications. You'll remember that this year we took on the Clean Vessel Act program. You're going to get a nice overview of how that program has been going under agenda item 11. And I'm sorry, yeah, I mixed up my agenda items. The A&E Authority will be agenda item 9, and the Clean Vessel Act will be agenda item 11. That is an annual program, and so right now we're in the process of applying to get next year's funding. Again, we would look at about $280,000 as an annual award. And so again, the program has been going well, and we're very happy to continue it and don't anticipate any challenges in having that grant approved and continuing that program. We talked a little bit about the marine debris removal program in the past. No significant update there. We expect to hopefully hear something in the fall. I do have to say that given where we are with federal budget and spending issues, we're not terribly optimistic. Okay, moving on to Delta Science. I want to report that the Delta Restoration Subcommittee is going to meet again on August 7th, and the topic will be current initiatives in the Delta. The group will get a presentation from Conservation Farms and Ranches and the Nature Conservancy to talk about how their mosaic of rice and wetland on the island is supporting sustainable management of the island into the future. Also hear from a presentation on Webb Tract and the Wetland Restoration Project. And Metropolitan Water District will speak about the overall process, and Hydro Focus Steve Deverell will present on carbon sequestration. And then a member from California State University Chico will talk about incorporating ecocultural perspectives, so their engagement with tribal interests to look at how those lands can be managed into the future. And then lastly, Point Blue Conservation Science will present on their research estimating the potential benefits of tidal wetland restoration in the Delta for the Delta's bird community. So it's going to be a packed agenda, a lot of good information, and we look forward to anyone who can participate joining us.
Campbell, when was that? Sorry, when was that? What's the
It's
date of that?
August 7th.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Delta Interagency Invasive Species Coordination Team. The 6th Biennial Delta Invasive Species Symposium planning continues, led by an interagency planning team, but facilitated by Conservancy staff. I want to thank Rachel Wigginton and Angie Shakya, who have both really stepped up to support that planning. The group has identified the 2025 theme as modeling and managing invasive species for tomorrow's Delta. And it'll be held at the California Natural Resources Agency building in Sacramento on December 4th. During the last meeting, we described our first meeting of a new Delta Carbon team, and that team is really intended to bring all of the agencies and NGOs that are working on subsidence reversal and carbon issues in the Delta together to share experiences and share learning and try to think about how we might address challenges collectively. So we had our second meeting of that group on June 24th. At that meeting, team identified priority and long-term actions, and then assignments had been for sub-teams that will begin to work on specific tasks. And the expectation is now that the team will meet on a quarterly basis. Couple quick outreach mentions. Staff attended the Summer Fest in Oakley. It's a great opportunity to help people understand the climate bond and conservancy projects and funding that's available, and just talk with the community in general. Staff also attended the Just Transitions public workshop. The purpose of that workshop is to have people take part in developing and assessing future scenarios that envision a more resilient future for the Delta. And that process is led by UC Davis with UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, and UC Merced. I believe it's a fairly lengthy process, but I think the first report's not due out for another year. We put in 2 abstracts for the State of the Estuary Conference, which will be in October 28th and 29th in Oakland this year. The first is looking at the Delta Conservancy Proposition 4 grant program. So just an opportunity to get more information out there about what the program is and will do, and that funding is available. And then the other one is a oral session that will include several speakers, and that's implementing permitting tools to advance ecological restoration in the Bay Delta estuary. So really kind of building on the Green Tape Initiative and some of the progress and focusing on permitting and getting things done at scale. Just about to wrap it up, just a couple of media mentions there. There was an article about the Walk in the Marsh, which was funded by ourselves, an article about the Metropolitan Water District's partnering with the ecocultural experts on Webb Tract, and then the Delta Protection Commission produced an article on rice cultivation becoming more common in the Delta, which we supported through interviews. So there were no board directives at the last meeting, and unless there are questions, I will stop the program portion there and turn it over to Jessica to do a budget review.
Any questions for Campbell at this point? Campbell, I just have one. With the departure of Dr. Lesmeister, does the Six Sigma efficiencies of the preparation of the board packet, did that get completed, or is that continuing?
It's completed and it's continuing, and there's also a process for continual learning and improvement. So we're very happy that she was able to initiate that for us, and we will carry on.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the budget portion then.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Adel. I'm the administration supervisor here at the Delta, and since Chelsea's on maternity leave and I supervise her, I get to do board liaison as well. This morning, Campbell did update you on the 25-26 budget. We have put a draft of that together. We're moving forward without the Prop 4 funding. We should be okay, but the Prop 4 funding will make everything easier. So this year, for the first time since we did do that, and you spoke of the Lean Sigma 6 board packet, since we have moved to a later time putting our stuff together, I was actually able to do an entire year FY 25-26 draft budget. I don't have it final reviewed yet. But so this was a complete year for us at the Delta Conservancy. Good job. We made it through the year. The money we had, I'm always happy to see that. Very briefly, this is agenda item 6, attachment 2, and it's on page 12 of the board packet. Just a few items to note. Our line 4, total personnel services, we did use most of our salaries budget. Any variance left there will be for any items that the controller's office will post back in July that were serviced in June. And they do usually have a few items that come back that didn't get posted for June. Same with line 18 for our total operating expenditures and equipment. We again have a variance left over there again for items that we haven't been billed yet, but we will still be billed for. On line 24, our multi-year appropriations of $1,619,000. Those will be used for future budgeting. So you'll see those rebudgeted in the 25-26 budget when the next revision comes out, probably in the fall. Not on there yet. Finally, our reimbursement line 26, those monies are actually like accounts receivable or money that we have not received yet, but they were billed or will be billed for the service period of 25-26. And so we're still waiting on that $83,000 to come through. That's all I have. Are there any questions? Thank you.
No questions? Okay. Any questions online? Okay. And I believe that concludes item 6.
All good. Thank you.
Any public comments on item 6, the executive director's report for the budget? Seeing none, hearing none. Moving on, item 7, the ecosystem restoration and climate adaptation program update. Angie.
Good morning.
Okay.
My name is Lauren Damon. I'm the Ecosystem Restoration and Climate Adaptation Program Supervisor, lovingly referred to as the ERICA program. I'm going to be presenting agenda item 7, again, on behalf of Angie. Apologies for my reading. I didn't write this, so I'm going to have to just refer to what she has here. This program, or this update, is also available in your board packet on page 13, so you can follow along. Project descriptions, updates, and a map of project locations can be found on our website. Currently, the ERICA program has 15 active projects and 23 closed projects. I'd like to highlight a few of our active projects. For those of you following along, you'll see project photos inside of the board packet. First, the Little Franks Tract Invasive Weed Removal and Restoration Project is a project intended to determine the most effective way to manage invasive weeds and reestablish native habitat on the Little Franks Tract, the remnant levees, located in Contra Costa County. The project team has created entry points to access the island, and they have established plans for spring, which is scheduled to start in the fall. Next, we have the Ulatis Creek Habitat Restoration Project, which has completed the spring planting efforts, and the project team has planted nearly 30,000 native plant plugs at the project site. This is an updated number from what's listed in your packet, and here we've provided a link, or in the packet, we provided a link to Solano RCD's, Solano Resource Conservation District's social media page that shows photos of the plants thriving along Ulatis Creek after they planted them. Finally, we'll have a Nutria update presented to this board later today by Valerie Cook from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The numbers and updates are within the ERICA staff report in your board packet, so you can reference that, but she'll be providing a verbal update. Just additional background, the ERICA program includes 3 funding sources: Proposition 1, the Climate Access and Restoration, also known as CAR, and the Nature-Based Solutions for Wetland Restoration, or the NBS program. Each of these grant programs have only a small amount of funding remaining for amendments and as-needed changes. That concludes the ERICA program update. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions on the ERICA program? No? Any public comment on the Erica program? No? And since you did such a great job of shortening the last title, I'm going to let you read the next one, item number 8.
Okay. You want me to read the full title? So good morning again. Again, I'm Lauren Damon, and I'm going to present agenda item 8, which is project updates and consideration of amendment to scope for the Wetland Mosaic Landscape on Webb Tract project, which can be found starting on page 17 of your agenda packet. I just want to give you a warning, this one might get a little bit long, and Rachel is scared to explain. So first I'll start with a brief introduction and background just to reorient everyone. The Wetland Mosaic Landscape on Webb Tract project is 2 separate projects that together will stop subsidence and reduce carbon emissions on the entirety of Webb Tract. The first project is a wetland restoration project. The second project is a rice conversion project. Webb Tract is a roughly 5,500 acre island located in Contra Costa County in the heart of the Central Delta, and it has subsided as much as 7 meters below sea level. Funding was awarded by this board to the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California for these projects in May of 2023. State funds were provided by the Nature-Based Solutions Wetland Restoration General Fund allocation, which was received by the Delta Conservancy. Each project consists of 2 different phases. Phase 1 consists of planning activities and has been ongoing since funding was awarded. Phase 2 covers implementation activities and was awarded funding conditional on the grantee's satisfactory completion of California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, compliance, and review and consideration of CEQA compliance by this board. There are 2 items in this agenda topic for the board to consider. The first item for your consideration, staff are recommending that the board approve a conditional scope change to the wetland restoration project to move final design planning from phase 2 into phase 1. The second item up for your consideration, staff are recommending that the board authorize the Conservancy's executive officer to conditionally approve a scope and budget change to the rice conversion project that will move all of this project into phase 2 and also shift funds from the wetland project into the rice. There's suggested motion language for both requests at the end of the staff report, which will help provide a little bit of clarity about what we're asking. So I'm now going to discuss each project separately, providing the justification for the action item on additional project updates. I'll first start with the wetland restoration project and let you know when I switch over to the rice project.
Maybe you could do the motion separately too.
After I do the wetland one and then do the motion. What do you think about that, Campbell? Did you hear what she said? Doing the wetland motion.
I think let's just go through both sections and then we'll do the motions after. You can do the motions after.
Okay. Metropolitan is requesting to move final design planning from phase 2 into phase 1. Standard practice here at the Conservancy is to complete final design planning as part of phase 2. However, Metropolitan's board of directors cannot consider authorizing construction until after final design plans are complete, thus causing a mismatch in timing and board approvals. Conservancy staff agree that moving the final design planning into phase 1 is an appropriate resolution, but both conditions, which are completion of CEQA compliance and consideration of CEQA compliance by this board, must be met. To further discuss CEQA compliance, I'm going to now pass it off to Dr. Rachel Wigginton to provide more info.
Hey, good morning. I know, sorry. We switched on you.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, we're keeping it interesting this morning. So good morning, board members. As Lauren said, my name is Rachel Wigginton, and I'm a senior environmental scientist at the Delta Conservancy. And I'm going to give some background about CEQA for the Webb Tract Wetland Restoration Project. So the Webb Tract Wetland Restoration Project is considered a project under CEQA. Initial project design plans have been completed as part of phase 1 on the project. Based on these design plans and also the studies that support them, Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, acting as the CEQA lead agency, prepared a CEQA statutory exemption for restoration projects, or SERP, concurrence request, and submitted it to the director of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. For a little bit of background on the SERP exemption, in 2021, Senate Bill 155 added a section to California's Public Resource Code, which provides a CEQA statutory exemption for restoration projects. This exemption applies to projects that meet several criteria, including enhancing the recovery of California native fish and wildlife and resulting in long-term net benefits to climate resiliency, biodiversity, and sensitive species recovery. The director of CDFW issued a concurrence with the SERP request on July 10th, 2025, and MET filed a lead agency notice of exemption on July 11th, 2025. However, just as an added wrinkle, shortly after the NOE was posted, both MET and CDFW noted an error in the total acreage reported in CDFW's SERP concurrence and MET's NOE. However, both organizations agree that adjusting this acreage to modify the SERP concurrence is not going to alter the analysis that was done to support the SERP or any of the outcomes of that analysis. And both organizations, MET and CDFW, are currently working to correct this error in the acreage. So as a responsible agency, staff have reviewed the proposed project, all the SERP materials, as well as those needed edits to correct the project acreage in the CEQA documentation. And staff agree with the determination that was made by MET and CDFW that the project meets the requirements for a statutory exemption. As a CEQA responsible agency, the board doesn't need to take any additional CEQA actions, but consider the CEQA findings that were before you today. Completed CEQA compliance would satisfy one of the conditions needed to move into phase 2 of the wetland restoration project and would allow for the movement that was being requested here of the final design plans from phase 2 into phase 1.
Thank you, Rachel. Because we're talking about the design planning, I just wanted to go over where the results of the initial design planning. So we're going to pull up a map and just sort of walk through what the initial design will look like so far. And this is the design that will be used to move then into final design plan and approve today. This map is also on page 21 of your agenda packet if that's easier for you to review. So the gray area on this map is the area that will be the rice project. So those were existing agricultural fields that are going to be converted into rice or planned to be converted into rice. The non-shaded areas kind of around that are existing sensitive habitats that are not part of these projects and will not be disturbed. They're existing ponds that provide a lot of really great habitat that's already existing. The area that's not shaded in the bottom leftish corner is an area that was requested by the Reclamation District to be left alone to allow them to collect material for levee repairs or whatever else they needed. So that was requested by the Reclamation District. And then the wetland footprint covers all of the brightly colored regions. I'll just walk through kind of what all the colors mean. So the purple is open water habitat, anything that's deeper than 4 feet. This was decided to be left as open water habitat to provide some habitat heterogeneity, but also because it was so deeply subsided to try to flood that at an elevation that would support vegetation would have been cost prohibitive. The permanently flooded vegetated wetland locations are the areas that range from dark blue into lighter blue. And then wetlands that will be seasonally inundated are the yellow and greener areas. Anything that's in orange is dry upland habitat. This also includes some sand dune habitat. So immediately after construction, the area on this map that will be inundated permanently or seasonally is 2,400 acres. And that's expected to increase up to 2,600 acres after 15 years. Some of this dry acreage will move from dry into partially or into inundated, but some of it will remain as sand dunes because sand dune is an important delta habitat and it doesn't have any subsidence or greenhouse gas benefits when wetted the way that peat soil does. These areas are not expected to naturally convert to wetlands given that they have a different type of habitat on them. So during the initial design phase, it was determined that this design that you're seeing here was the most cost-effective approach to restoration. Given the topography, trying to immediately wet the 3,000 acres that was part of the original award would result in either very deep water that does not reverse subsidence or have the greenhouse gas benefits, or it would either result in very expensive engineering and dirt moving. Flooding the deeply subsided areas first at a depth that supports wetland vegetation and soil accretion will result in increased wetland acreage over time, while also achieving the primary objectives of the nature-based solutions funds, which are subsidence reversal and greenhouse gas emissions reductions. Given the information provided to staff regarding preliminary design, Conservancy staff regarding preliminary design, Staff approved a modification that allows Metropolitan to move forward with design planning using the design I described and reduced initial acreages from up to 3,000 acres to up to 2,400 acres. This change is anticipated to reduce construction costs by about $3 million. This value may change as design continues to be refined and if we move now into final design planning. At a future meeting, this board will consider approval of the final design and acreage to be constructed and the final cost estimate before authorizing funding for construction and the rest of phase 2 for the wetland project. So that concludes the wetland update. I'll move now into the rice conversion project.
Can I ask a question now?
Sure.
So for the issue of the moving the phase 1 to what's usually our phase 2 to phase 1, why do we have a policy that the final design is in phase 2? Just curious.
So our policy is that's the point in which you would complete your CEQA analysis. And so that is why we usually have it as part of the implementation, because that's the break between planning and implementation is when we complete our CEQA analysis.
It seems like you'd want to have the plan before you start doing things, but.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Well, usually as part of phase 1, you have an initial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is some planning already completed, but not final.
Okay. And then my other question is in regards to the acreage number mistake. Was the map right, but they just put the wrong number in there? Because did they study the right place?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just curious. I'm looking at the lawyer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, the study and the CEQA analysis that was submitted as part of the concurrence request covers the restoration project as you're seeing it here with the sort of what was known at the 65% design phase, which is Nicole just said, is where usually CEQA analysis is happening in that like 60 to 70% design phase. And it was essentially, I think, issue of several different teams working on this. And so there was a team that was doing the analysis, and then there was a team that was sort of like filing the paperwork. And so our understanding is that it's mostly a clerical error, just like a lack of clarity in some of the figures. But so we wanted to make sure that everything matched up and that we were doing our due diligence as far as analyzing the entirety of the project.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure they were looking at the right thing. If they got the number wrong,
Yeah.
I understand numbers.
And I say we, but I absolutely mean Metropolitan.
Yeah, them.
District as the lead agency, and we're working with them as a responsible agency, just to make sure that we're reviewing everything and bringing it to this board for your.
Fish and wildlife.
Correct, yes, thank you.
And agenda item 8.2 is a letter from Fish and Wildlife indicating that they will be reissuing the letter and then further now. Okay, so on to the rice conversion. For this action item, you can stop sharing this, thank you. Metropolitan is requesting to move into phase 2 of the rice conversion project. So the entirety of phase 2, not just a portion of it. And also requesting to move funds from the wetland construction project into the rice construction project. Phase 2 of the rice construction project begins at execution of a lease agreement between Metropolitan and a farmer in the Delta. The lease is to grow rice on 1,361 acres of wet tract. During phase 1, Metropolitan released 2 solicitations for the rice lease. The first resulted in no bids, and feedback received indicated that the land conversion reimbursement that was offered by Metropolitan in the solicitation was too low. This reimbursement is planned to be covered by project funds. The second solicitation significantly increased the reimbursement and was based on quotes received by Metropolitan from private contractors to do things like dirt moving. The second solicitation resulted in a prospective lessee, and lease execution is pending approval from Metropolitan's board. Authorization of the lease was on the agenda during Metropolitan's June board meeting, but the board deferred action to their August meeting. Conservancy staff expect that Metropolitan will complete their CEQA compliance for the rice project by applying 1 or more categorical exemptions during their August meeting. The request for you all today is for this board's approval of phase 2 that is conditional on the lead agency finding the project exempt and the Conservancy's executive officer reviewing and concurring with the lead agency's determination. Metropolitan is also requesting to move up to $2,680,000 from wetland construction to rice construction. The unexpected high cost of land conversion, which was roughly $3,000 per acre, significantly increased the rice construction budget, and Metropolitan is anticipating a decrease in the wetland construction budget as I described earlier. Conservancy staff are bringing this request to you today, rather than waiting until after Metropolitan's board approves the lease, because if they approve, Metropolitan is desiring to begin construction starting this summer of 2025. Rice construction is planned to take 3 years, and delaying construction until the summer of 2026 means, or spring of 2026 rather, means the full rice acreage would not be complete before the end of the grant funding term. That covers my formal report. To help clarify the action items, I can first read the suggested motion language, which is on page 20 of your staff report, so you can follow along, and then I'm happy to address any questions or concerns.
Okay.
So the first motion we're proposing is move that the board approve a scope change to authorize the grantee to complete final wetland restoration design and planning as part of phase 1 of the Wetland Mosaic Landscape on Webb Tract project, conditional upon the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's director signing an updated CERP concurrence and the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California submitting an updated notice of exemption to the state clearinghouse.
Okay, now that's been read into the record, we'll call that motion 1. Let's go ahead and read the second motion.
Sure.
Thank you.
We just got news, but I'll do the first. Move that the board authorize the executive officer to approve phase 2 of the rice conversion project and approve a budget change to reallocate up to $2,680,000 from the wetland restoration project to the rice conversion project, conditional on the grantee, which is the lead agency, approving the phase 2 activities and concluding that the rice lease is categorically exempt from CEQA and there are no exceptions to the exemptions, and that the Conservancy's executive officer reviews and concurs with those determinations.
And that's been read into the record, so we'll refer to that heretofore as motion number 2. And now questions of staff and or breaking news that needs to be announced.
So we just got an email that says that the CDFW director just reissued the concurrence request. I haven't confirmed, I don't know if you have, but we just got that email, so.
Yeah, it hasn't come into my inbox, but the lead agency just got word. So there's still, I think we would need the paperwork and the NOE would need to be filed. So unless Nicole disagrees, I feel like we could leave the motion language the same. Okay.
So leave the motion the same, but it's not really conditional anymore because we have that in hand.
Well, we don't actually have it in hand because they haven't reviewed it yet. So
Okay.
word has been received that apparently it has been done.
Very good.
Good news.
It's looking good.
Are there any other questions for staff on this item? Yes.
It looked like, so, with the shifting from the, well, and it looked like because there's less wetland being constructed, there's like a $3 million reduction in construction estimates. And we're shifting a bunch of it over for the rice conversion. What happens to the remainder of that? Like,
Because that money for the wetland construction is still technically in phase 2, it hasn't been authorized to spend yet. So it'll kind of just hang in limbo until we get into phase 2. And then we can, when this board authorizes moving into phase 2, it'll be in addition to a budget. And then you'll also get to see the budget and the remaining funds.
okay, great, thanks.
If I can ask just a clarifying question, because I had a similar concern, or it is, so essentially they're reducing the wetland acreage, which reduces the cost of construction there. They're increasing the cost of construction for the rice acreage. And so most of that money is going to be reallocated within this project. We're not anticipating a significant return back of the grant. Is that?
That's correct. Yeah.
Other questions? If not, I have a few more. So one of you said, I think that this island is 7 meters subsided. Is that correct? Okay, and so in looking at this, the schedule for the wetland conversion, you know, the darkest water before you get to open water is 3 to 4 feet of water.
Mhm.
So I would assume that the open water then will still be considerably below sea level. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
And then the upland areas as well, the dune uplands would also still be technically subsided below sea level?
Yes, they are still below sea level. They'll just be higher than the wetland surface elevation, the water line of the surface elevation for the wetland.
Okay. And I know one of the considerations when there's material removal, settlement removal in the system is a local reuse. Is there an opportunity to put any sediment on top of these dunes in order to continue building them up beyond the point of subsidence?
I don't know if that's been looked into. I would punt to the project proponents if you guys have looked into that, Melinda. Do you wanna- But if you could come up here so they can hear you on the, online.
Okay, so as far as the sand dunes are concerned, they are at a much higher elevation than the rest of the wetland units will be, and it'll take some time before those wetland units actually catch up to where the sand dunes are. The sand dunes themselves were specifically requested by the ecocultural working group that we maintain those. In the first iteration of the construction design, we were going to use that material for levee. The reclamation district had requested that we keep that material for levees. But because the ecocultural working group found that it was something that would be culturally important to them, they asked that we protect that in place. So, we redid the design, and that's why we have the spot in the lower section of the island now that you see that it's not covered part of the project that will be used for that reclamation materials. So it'll be a number of years before that water surface elevation will reach to that sand dune level. And then we expect that over time, with the rest of these wetland units, the way they were designed was to over time continue to spread, and eventually 50, 100 years down the line, when it gets to that elevation, it'll do the same thing. It will continue to, the wetland unit will continue to spread and reverse subsidence, and eventually it'll overtop that sand dune as well.
Okay, and so what I just heard is that there is local reuse within the project of material, which is a good thing. Do you anticipate, I guess I'm trying to get, is there still a threat of a levee breach that would cause this island to flood? Or at some point, do you anticipate that those wetlands would actually reverse the subsidence up to a point of equilibrium?
That's what we're hoping for, is for the subsidence to be reduced to a point of equilibrium eventually. And in the meantime, Metropolitan has a robust levee protection program where we monitor the levees. We have materials on site, stockpile materials on site. If there were any kind of a levee breach, we have a monitoring where we have staff that drive around the island on a daily basis to make sure that there's no breaches or leaks or anything, so that we can repair those right away. But the whole point of this is to see whether or not we can reverse the subsidence to a point where we can actually protect reverse that subsidence and reduce the pressure on the levees themselves, and show that that can be done in the Delta region.
Right on, thank you.
Just a point of clarification on that, Melinda mentioned that the time horizon on that, like reversal of subsidence is quite long. So
Very
the
Yeah, for
project,
centimeters, we're talking centimeters per year
Yeah,
for reversal.
So what about that spoil area that you have there? That's not part of the restoration. You're going to be taking soil or materials from there for the levees around the island and other places. What is its current elevation, and how is that protected from flooding it as it gets deeper over time?
It's a little bit higher elevation, and it is enough material for us to be able to work with the levees for the next 50 years is the planned horizon. So as that material gets worked out, we will end up filling that in eventually with the wetland unit. It will eventually be used by that, but for right now, it's higher ground than the rest of the wetland units surrounding it. So
that would be an upcoming project to us.
it'll,
maybe.
yeah, but it's as they take material as they need it for the levee repairs over time, it'll slowly deplete that area, and then we will start to fill that in so that it will be so that it will eventually be wetland as like the rest of the units around it. And eventually, many years down the line, hopefully we'll get to a point where we won't need to import material, but there is the possibility that we'll have to import material. This particular island is very difficult because there are no roads to the island. So getting material to this island is very difficult. So we want to try to preserve as much as we can in place for now. And yeah, we'll have to see what happens in the next 50 years or so, but it's hard to say what will.
Do you know what its current elevation is?
I can't, right off the top of my head, I can't tell you. Right off the top of my head.
Okay. Dr. Allen.
It won't help the people online unless we want to pull up another map. Can somebody point out where this island is in the bigger scope of the delta?
Nice.
Okay. Still trying to get the map built in my head.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I love map.
Melinda, can you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Melinda Stalby, program manager and project manager for the grant programs, both the wetland restoration and conversion projects on Webb Tract.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Final question is an economic one. Given the fact that we had to quote unquote sweeten the pot, I think because of the cost of the conversion to rice fields, does that create an economic disadvantage for other rice growers in their cost to market? does not have that, or are we simply creating a level playing field because of the cost to put this land into a rice operation?
So the funding that's provided for the conversion is just to convert the land into like a rice ready condition, so the land leveling. So I don't expect that it's gonna change, like it would have any impacts on like other farmers. Cause similarly, we provided like funding through our other program, the
Yeah.
rice conversion
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
So I think this really just levels the playing field.
So MWD is bearing the cost to bring this land to a rice ready condition that the private sector probably wouldn't have done barring.
Yes.
Right, excellent.
Yeah, $3,000 an acre to convert to rice would probably be cost prohibitive for most farmers and wouldn't generate that much revenue.
Sure.
They had to put that.
Great. Any other questions? Did you have something you wanted to add, Melinda?
Would mind, I just, the first RFP, we did put out an RFP at $875 an acre, and we didn't get any bids on the project. And so we went to farmers in the area to ask them what it was, why didn't we receive any bids? Was it that we didn't go out, did we not cast a wide enough net? And it was because of the high cost of leveling the land on this island. And the peat soils, the type of peat soils that it is, and the fact that getting to the island is so difficult that it actually costs significantly for that. That's why the increase in the cost for the second RFP we put out.
Gotcha.
I also just want to underline that point that through the other MBS programs we're doing, we are paying for that same thing on other properties. So there are private farmers that are also gaining from that. And as we move forward with rice conversion, that's the intended outcome, is that the obstacle to people implementing is the cost of leveling the land. And so we intend to keep funding that leveling of the land. So everyone should have that equal playing field.
Right on. Any other questions? Any comments from the public? Okay, is there a motion for motion one? Okay, a motion from Commissioner Wentz. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Matsumoto, do we need to take these motions together or separately?
Did we read the motions?
We did read the motion. Separate? Okay, so then we'll have a roll call vote on motion number one separately.
Hey, Chair Hume,
Aye.
Member Winternitz,
Yes.
Supervisor Scales Preston,
Yes.
Supervisor Dollywall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Allen,
I,
Board Member Sandoval,
Yes.
and Board Member Matsumoto.
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, the motion carries.
Very good. Is there a motion for motion number two?
so moved.
All right, motion from Supervisor Allen. Is there a second? I'll second it. Roll call
Okay.
vote for motion two, please.
Okay, Chair Hume,
Aye.
Member Winternitz,
Yes.
Supervisor Scales Preston,
Yes.
Supervisor Dollywall,
Yes.
Member Sandoval,
Yes.
and Member Matsumoto.
Yes.
Okay, we have 7 ayes, the vote carries.
Great. All right, thank you. And thank you, Melinda, for your input. Appreciate it. All right, on to item number 9, which is a request for approval to enter into architectural and engineering contract with the most qualified firm for an amount up to $120,000 to conduct a subsequent analysis for potential restoration of Frank's Tract. Ms. Damon, you're up again.
Yep, last one with me, I promise. So hello again, I'm Lauren Damon. This is agenda item 9, and it can be found starting on page 23 of your agenda packet. Here staff are recommending that the board authorize the Conservancy's executive officer the ability to enter into an A&E contract for an amount up to $120,000. The Delta Conservancy received authority to enter A&E contracts on July 10th, 2025. The proposed regulation was presented to and approved by this board at the last board meeting on May 28th. This request is required because the current delegation of authority to the executive officer to execute contracts is for amounts not to exceed $100,000. If approved, this A&E contract will be executed with the most qualified firm. To determine the most qualified firm, staff released a request for qualifications in May of 2025. The statements of qualifications were evaluated by staff and final contract negotiations are currently underway. If approved, staff anticipate executing a contract in August with a duration of 12 months. The A&E contract would support advancing the Frank's Tract Futures project by engaging in a collaborative, structured decision-making process and conducting value engineering to refine and prepare new cost estimates. The contract scope of work and task specifics are summarized in agenda item 9.2, starting on page 25 of your agenda packet. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the suggested motion language is at the end of the agenda item.
Okay, is this the project that essentially removes the invasive species off the remaining levees of what it used to be Frank's Tract?
No, that's a Prop 1 project that we funded separately. This one is to reevaluate the design of the Frank's Tract Futures project. So the prior design that CDFW is leading up has a really high price tag for it. So this will come up with use structured decision-making and value engineering to try to develop a new design that's more cost effective.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions on this item? Director Allen?
Where's Frank's Tract?
Right below Webb Tract.
Yeah, I see the big
Excited.
There.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
open water now.
We love that map too.
Okay, any other questions? No? Are there any public comments on this item? No? Is there a motion to approve staff's recommendation? Is there motion language we need to read? I didn't see that. Oh, there is. Okay, you want to read that?
Sure.
Great.
Move that the board authorize the executive officer to enter into an architectural and engineering contract with the most qualified firm for an amount up to $120,000 to conduct the cost feasibility analysis for the restoration of Frank's Tract.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second? Second?
Okay, this is our last vote for the day. Chair Hume,
Aye.
Supervisor Skels Preston.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Vice Chair, Board Member Winterness.
Yes.
There we go. I was off there. Supervisor Dollywall,
Yes.
Supervisor Allen,
Aye.
Member Sandoval,
Yes.
and finally Member Martin.
Yes.
Okay, we have 7 ayes. The motion carries.
Okay. Phew. Item number 10. Garrett has the next 2 items.
Good morning, members. My name is Maya Garrett, and I'm the Conservancy's Ecological and Community Programs Analyst. I'm here to present Agenda Item 10, the Community Enhancement Grant Program Update, which can be found on page 27 of your agenda pack. We currently have 11 active, 3 awarded, and 4 closed projects. Project descriptions, updates, and a map of project locations can be found on our website, but I'd like to present some highlights. The 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse, a Conservancy-funded project that restored the old schoolhouse and turned it into a welcome center in Clarksburg, has completed the restoration and is now completing the outdoor displays. The second project I'd like to highlight is the Pursuing City Fishing Dock Planning Project, which has completed the outreach and equity assessment for the project. To provide some background, the Community Enhancement Program is funded through a $12 million allocation from Proposition 68 and 2 general fund allocations of Climate Access and Resource, or CAR funds, totaling $11.4 million. Currently, Proposition 68 funding is fully allocated, and there is under $20,000 available in CAR funds. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Great. Any comments or questions on this item?
It was fun to see the schoolhouse on our tour the other night.
Schoolhouse.
We know exactly where that is. And I'm now Googling Sassoon City.
Schoolhouse is an awesome project. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, it is a receive and file. And so Maya, you're up for the next item as well.
Again, in follow-up to the CEP report, I'm presenting agenda item 11, the Clean Vessel Act Program Overview. The staff report and these slides can be found starting on page 30 of the board packet. In 2025, the Conservancy was awarded over $271,000 to administer the Clean Vessel Act program by California State Parks Division of Boating and Waterways Clean Vessel Act Education and Outreach Grant Program. The objectives of the grant are to prevent water pollution and improve water quality, protect and enhance recreation, and expand outreach for the Conservancy. This is done primarily through monitoring, educating on, and promoting the usage of sewage pump out stations throughout the Northern California region, which is primarily the Bay Delta estuary. To achieve the objectives of the previous slide and to fulfill grant requirements, Conservancy staff perform pump out monitoring field work at 63 marinas twice a year, conduct education and outreach at events and while visiting marinas, attend conferences and workshops, and record data and follow up on pump out issues on the Pump Out Nav app. As part of our education outreach efforts, the Conservancy launched the Clean Vessel Act website and created 4 social media posts across all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and LinkedIn. Boat shows and conferences are an additional part of the education and outreach component of the grant. Staff attended the Sacramento Boat Show in March, will attend the Sausalito Boat Show in September, and will attend the state's Organization for Boating Access in August. The outreach events reach over 700 boaters and marina operators annually. At these events, we supply information on clean boating using the pump, how to use the Pump Out Nav app to locate pump outs, and provide boater kits to boaters. In order to ensure pump outs are functioning and boaters are able to use them safely, boaters and marinas are provided with deck adapter kits, Y valve kits, and replacement parts when requested. Deck adapter kits ensure boaters can use pump outs their nozzles may not fit, and Y valves help boaters avoid sewage spills. Replacement parts include valves, nozzles, hoses, and sight glasses. In April, over the course of 3 weeks, staff visited 63 marinas and monitored 81 pump outs and 5 dump stations. These pump outs keep thousands of gallons of sewage out of the waterways. The territory covered included 13 counties. The Conservancy board and staff determined working outside the Conservancy boundaries would provide water quality benefits to the Delta. Because of the large geographic area covered, a lot of planning goes into the development of routes in order to visit each marina in the most efficient manner. This is a sample route staff took on a field day. So we monitor pump outs to ensure they function and are accessible. When monitoring pump outs, we take several pieces of data. We take the meter reading of the pump out to get the hourly usage. We then check vacuum pressure, perform a pump time check, and note the signage and equipment quality. All the data is recorded in the Pump Out Nav app. Okay, so this is a video of the monitoring process we perform at each pump out. The location of this pump out is at Pier 39 in San Francisco. I'm collecting 5 gallons. And now I'm going to prime the pump so the pressure is built up. After this, I am going to take the pressure reading. 22 psi is the ideal reading. Which this one was coincidentally. Then we check to see if the location is dye tapped approved. This one was, so we're going to add the dye. After the pump test, we'll walk the plumbing line to check for leaks. Right now, I'm going to take 5 gallons of water. All of this data will be recorded in the Pump Out Nav app. The program utilizes and helps in the development of a nationwide app called Pump Out Nav. The Pump Out Nav app stores the data collected from surveying. It also is a tool that voters can use to find public pump outs and whether they are operational. They can also report any issues. Staff follows up with marinas to find out what the issues are and if they've been fixed. We can also provide assistance like replacement parts. Since the Conservancy started administering the program, over 100 new users downloaded the Pump Out Nav app. This concludes the overview of the CDA program. I'm happy to take any questions.
Do voters that utilize the pump, do they pay a fee to?
So it depends. They might, but from what I've observed, most of them are free.
Question online?
Yes, this is Gloria. It's not a question, just wanted to compliment or actually share how happy I am to see that this program is still running. I started my career in state service 25 years ago at the then Department of Boating and Waterways, and the work that they do to protect our waterways is really impressive. So thank you for the partnership and for keeping our waterways clean.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us on to item number 12, which is the implementation report. The implementation plan status update.
All right. Well, Chair Hume, members of the board, it is always an honor to present the hard work of our small but mighty team that you see here today. I'm always impressed with how much this team accomplishes, and it's an honor to get to communicate that to you every year. And today is no exception to these updates. To orient you, every January, the team creates an implementation plan that's based on the strategic plan. And then every July, we come back to you and let you know how we're progressing along that implementation plan that we've set for the year. And I just want to remind us all that our strategic plan is actually set to expire in January of 2027. So next year we will be embarking on another strategic planning update. So you're all excited about that. This report that we're presenting to you is a little bit new, so I do want the format of it is new, so I do want to orient you to it. As you look through it, we have our original goals that we presented to you in January. Those are all done in italics. Did we put those in italics? Yes, those are in italics. And then below that are all the updates that we have, and those are all done in blue. So as you read through the report, the italics are the original goal, the blue are the updates. We have been kind of revamping this report, and we're not crazy with how it came out. So if anybody has ideas of how we could present this information more clearly, we would absolutely love to hear it. We've been kind of scratching our heads internally, trying to figure out the best way to do this. There's also a highlight at the beginning of the document, which gives about a page of just what we've been working on in the first half of the year. That's where I'm going to focus today because it's really the high level accomplishments that we've done. But please, we would love to answer questions on anything throughout the report. So I'm happy to answer questions on those things. So the top three things that we've been working on, and most of these things have been mentioned already today in one format or another, so I will try not to be redundant on any of it, but Prop 4 has been a major focus for us. We really recognize as a team that the Prop 4 funding is going to go very quickly. We're very thankful for the amount we have, but we also know how great the need in the Delta is. So we know that money is going to disappear. And we also know that there may not be money coming anytime soon in the future behind that for propositions. So we've taken very seriously the task of making sure that this funding goes a long way for our community. So we spent a lot of time both going out and talking with our partners about what's needed and how we can have the biggest and highest benefit, and also working internally, knowing that our staff are experts on what's needed in the Delta, as well as how to administer grant programs. So we spent a lot of time, both internally and externally, thinking through Prop 4. And as Campbell mentioned at the beginning, What that's come out to for us in detail is that we'll be splitting the funding equally amongst our 3 programs. So we'll have equal pots for the nature-based solutions, for ecosystem restoration, and for our community programs. We have switched into a competitive process, so this won't be an ongoing process. We will have competitive grant rounds that will happen, one in each of the next 2 years for each of the programs. So you'll see that shift slightly. We've put some caps on the funding that each project and each organization is allowed to receive. And we also are introducing a small grant program. We've heard a lot about the capacity needs of the different organizations in the Delta. So we're going to offer a small grant program that both meets those capacity needs for organizations, but also really invests in small projects that may end up having a big impact on our overall understanding of the Delta or our ability to do our work in the community. So you'll see a shift in that, and that one will be an ongoing program. So you guys will see, hopefully there'll be a demand for it, and you'll see applications with each board meeting. As Campbell mentioned, we are just waiting. We've got everything is in order. We were hoping to really release everything August 1st. We're now waiting for the legislature to do some administrative fixes. So we will, as soon as that goes through, we'll be ready to release this to the streets. So please help us spread the word. We know there's a lot of projects out there that are in need of this funding. So that's been a big focus. We also have done a lot of focus on outreach, as you heard throughout the meeting today. Prop 4 was a very natural way to do that outreach. So we've worked with a lot of partners on that. But we've also been working on a lot of other things as well. So Campbell mentioned at the beginning our carbon meetings, and we're really excited about pulling all of the folks that are working on carbon in the Delta together. And we're excited about the impact that can have by bringing more coordination and focus on kind of these collective and our collective use of resources around carbon in the Delta. And then, as you just heard, we've also been doing a lot of outreach through the Clean Vessel Act program. So really hoping to build some of our presence in the community through that program as well. And then finally, I think the other thing that's really occupying us quite a bit is that, we're going through this transition that we've mentioned throughout the last couple of years, that most of our grant programs are being fully spent down. So as you look at the tables of what's available in grant funding, that's going down very quickly. We also expect that the Prop 4 money is going to go very quickly and will be just, to a handful of projects. So we're seeing that go down. And what that means for us is that we now need to kind of shift from delivering and putting out grants to thinking about what our overall benefit to the Delta is absent funding, as well as thinking about the long-term kind of sustainability of our staff. So we're thinking through all of those things as we walk through this year. And I just really want to thank our admin team because they've been awesome. Jessica's a really amazing budgeter and has been helping us really understand what our options are as far as budgeting and staff longevity. So we really appreciate that expertise. But we're thinking about where that looks. And we know that we look very good this year, and we're continuing to kind of work through what those next few years look like, with that kind of drawdown on funding. So it's something we're thinking about very closely. And the way that we're really addressing that is, one, a lot of this outreach is really focused on better understanding what our core mission is with our constituents and with the community in the Delta. So what are those things that we can bring in value that aren't necessarily funding, but are ways that we can coordinate, like bringing the carbon team together and some of the other things that have been asked of us. And then secondly, we are out looking for additional funding and finding places that we can bring in extra resources, like, again, the Clean Vessel Act program. How do we bring that into the Conservancy to make sure that we have continued funding? So those are the main things that we've been working on. And then I also want to just highlight, because I always want to highlight where we have maybe not been accomplishing our goals. And I think that the main thing that we've been looking at is really this outside funding. And that's for two reasons. One, we started looking at federal funding. I think we all know that that's a little chaotic and up in the air, so maybe not the best place to be looking for funding at this point. But also where we've seen a lot more value is in being able to work with our partner agencies in the state to be able to really highlight the issues in the Delta, potentially get some of their funding put towards our issues and kind of build collaborative projects and goals with our programs. And that kind of partnership just takes time. So we've been out meeting with folks and kind of building that, but it takes a little bit of time to get that going. So I think that's the place where we are continuing to work and hoping that we make some more progress. But we're really on track to meet all of the rest of the goals that we've set for the year. So I think we're doing pretty well. So finally, I just want to really note and kind of congratulate the staff on addressing the changing nature of this year with state budgets and federal budgets and all the kind of chaos that's been happening. This team has done an amazing job of really just like taking that uncertainty, pivoting, readjusting, reevaluating, and moving with the reality of the world that we're in. And one of the things that comes out of that is just a lot of extra budgets and drills. And, we get emails on a Monday that say, hey, could you have this report in for us by Friday? And we're reevaluating information. And the team has been amazing at responding to those things and making sure that everybody has the information that they need. So I really want to congratulate them on that. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to highlight today. We would absolutely love to hear your input. So knowing that we're in the middle of transition and things are going on, and there's a lot happening. If you all have any advice, ideas, priority setting, anything that you'd like to discuss with us, we'd love to hear it now, but Campbell and I are always available and would love to sit down with you at any point and just, hear what your thoughts are around the programs that we're offering and how we can bring more benefit to the Delta. So with that said, I would love any questions about either the things that I've covered today or anything that's in the report.
Okay. Excellent report. Thank you. Very thorough. Any questions or comments from directors in the room? Yes.
Get used to
The
that.
Delta Conservancy is right here.
Yeah. Excellent. I agree with that this morning. I found my way here. And I didn't say the exits. Anyhow, can you tell me a little bit more about mini grants? Like, what does that mean? Who's eligible? What's the definition of a mini grant?
Yeah, so the mini grant is anything under $100,000. So I think we're thinking about maybe tiering that a little bit. So having some really small grants and some bigger grants. And it's aimed at anything that's going to build the capacity of the Delta to do its work. So it could be, I know we have a lot of small nonprofits that are working towards really big, and we fund a lot of small nonprofits. It could be hiring staff for them to be able to go out and, research grants or do, just bring their capacity up. I know we've talked about some of that in LOC. So any of those folks. It also could be a small research project. So especially around carbon, like let's say there's some very specific things that we want to know. It could be a data analysis of, carbon sets that we already have and just, kind of helping us refine our understanding of that implementation. It could be a small event. It could be a signage project that maybe instead of building a museum, somebody wants to put up some QR codes and some signage around Delta's place. So anything that really helps expand that and is less than $100,000, we would be willing to entertain.
And is that already in place, or that's a plan for the future?
We haven't quite released it yet. We are still kind of processing through what that looks like. We wanted to get the big picture, bigger grants situated first, and then we'll be opening that, I would assume, in the next 2 or 3 months with a rolling basis.
And then the other area that I was thinking about is I've been hearing a lot about the invasive golden mussel lately. I know CDFW has been working on that. And I was thinking when you were at your clean vessel thing, when you were talking to your 700, somebody also telling them about the invasive golden mussel, if maybe that's a place that we could collaborate together or something.
That is a great idea. And I'll call up Rachel because she's been really focused on that for us.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked. My name is Rachel Wigginton.
Yeah, I was making sure it wasn't already on the agenda.
So we're approaching this in a couple of different ways. I think some of which are reflected in the mid-year report that you're looking at. So the first is that there is an interagency task force that's responding to golden mussel, and we're participating on a couple different teams of that task force. So one of those I'm participating on, and that is the partners team. And the goal of that team is really to make sure that we're bringing everyone who's affected by the golden mussel issue into the conversation. So through our work with the Delta Interagency Invasive Species Coordination Team, we've given CDFW, who's running all these task force teams, some contacts to make sure that they're bringing all the appropriate people into the different teams. And then Hope has been participating on the media and communications teams. So she's done things like prepare a one-pager that is specifically targeted at the agricultural community to help them understand how golden mussel might be impacting them. And then we're using our role as facilitators of the Delta Interagency Invasive Species Coordination Team to continue to give updates about golden mussel to all the team members. One of the leads is one of the CDFW point people for golden mussel. So those are the main ways that we're helping. And then finally, through the Clean Vessel Act program, Maya came up. I'll let her speak to that.
Yeah, at our boat shows, we typically share space with Division of Boating Waterways and other state agencies, and they also have information on golden mussel to share.
Good. Thank you. Okay, thank you for the questions and the repartee.
Yeah.
Any other questions at this point? I do just want to say I appreciate the effort. Obviously, Locke is anxiously waiting in the wings. I'm doing what I can to get them teed up. The other community that is just in a tailspin right now is IELTA. And so if we can maybe put our heads together and see if there isn't some way to lean in there. They're looking for the county to provide financial support to keep them afloat. Obviously, the county is adverse to that for myriad reasons. But they have, if nothing else, their sewer treatment plant that has spilled into the Delta in the past. And so I think it's in the interest of our mission to make sure that there are adults in the room keeping the lights on. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss that and how we can help.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. In that case, we will move on. Thank you very much. I believe that brings us to item 13, which is the Nutria Eradication Program update.
Yes, good morning. Nice to see several familiar faces in the room this morning. It's been a while. Campbell, my condolences. I also was struck with the COVID a couple of weeks ago, so I feel for you. For those of you that I have not yet met, I'm Valerie Cook, the Nutria Eradication Program Manager for CDFW. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. I always enjoy a chance to provide you with an update on where we're at. So I will go ahead and share my screen here and dive in. Fair warning, there will be several maps and graphics, so please feel free to ask questions as we go, if you would like. Okay, screen coming through okay on your end?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. These numbers are going to look very familiar to you. These come in your packet every meeting, but I'm just going to give you a quick overview of those numbers. And I'll note that the map here that we're looking at is showing the locations of where we have access agreements throughout the state for conducting the surveys and the trapping efforts that we're talking about. So what you see on the map is those 5,200 access agreements depicting 12,000 parcels spread across 20 counties in the project area. So far, we have conducted habitat assessments in 1.9 million acres through that area. We've deployed 13,600 camera stations. 1,300 of those are currently active in the project area. We've detected nutria in almost 1,400 cells. You're going to hear me talk about cells a lot today. I'll note that our entire project area is basically overlaid with a 40-acre grid. Each one of those 40-acre grid cells is what I'm talking about when I refer to a cell. So you can consider it a site. That means a 40-acre cell. We've detected nutria in about 1,400 of those cells distributed throughout the project area. We have deployed about 18,000 trap sets and conducted trapping for 191,000 trap nights. Of those trapping efforts to date, we have now taken 6,251 nutria, including the removal of about 7,600 fetal nutria as well. So we've removed even more offspring than the adult animals that we've removed. Here, we're going to take a look at an animation of where those 6,251 nutria have been taken from since the initial detection through the end of 2024. So watch for these red dots showing up on the map over time. So that's 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, and then in 23, we start seeing some hits in the Delta. We see Sassoon Marsh affected. And then, you know, hot spots there in the Mendota area in Fresno County, the grasslands in Merced County, and Sassoon Marsh. Another way to look at this information, this is a heat map, which is showing the locations and the relative densities of where those nutria were taken across all years. So the red dots show the discrete locations of take and the shading representing the relative densities. So blue being the lowest densities, increasing to red shading, representing the moderate densities, and yellow being the densest concentrations. And again, you'll note the hot spots that we'll be talking about of Mendota, the grasslands in Merced County, and that growing density in Sassoon Marsh. So in a few slides, we'll dive into those county-specific trends. Okay, here's where I have to ask you to bear with me. You guys have seen this before, but it's always a lot to look at. We have 4 types of data on this slide, so we're going to talk through each of these in terms of trends across all the years. And reminder, a cell is 40 acre unit in the project area. So we're going to start with looking at the dark blue bars. Those are the unique number of cells that we have surveyed each year. So we may have surveyed it once, we may have surveyed it 10 times. These are unique locations. Let's see, on average, since the program established, we've been able to survey about 4,100 cells per year. That's about 164,000 acres each year. Pretty relatively steady across all of those years, which is important to note as we talk about the other 3 pieces of data, which is trends and detections and take. So the white bars are the number of cells where nutria have been detected. From 20 to 23, we've been averaging around 300 cells. Last year, we ended up seeing a 71% increase to a total of 549 cells. We're at 405 so far this year, so we're already trending pretty similarly to last year. In the bright blue, that is the number of cells with nutria taken. So again, from 2020 to 2023, generally we were trending downward, averaging about 130 sites per year with nutria taken. But last year we saw an increase of 78% to 214 cells. So again, trending similarly to last year. The hash marked bars that we're looking at here is the number of nutria taken within each year. So as I mentioned, to date, we've taken a total of 6,251. Our previous peak was in the first year of the program's full-scale actual established operations. That was 1,239 animals, then generally trending downward until 2023. However, in 2024, we had a record high annual number of take at 1,353 animals, which was more than double the previous year and more than was taken in the previous 2 years combined. In terms of these trends and the increase that we experienced since 2024, we believe these trends are due to animals dispersing and being pushed into new areas. If you'll recall the high flows and flood events, for example, from 22 and 23, and those animals going undetected, reproducing for many months to potentially years before we find them. And then once we detect them, come in and start trapping, and we start rapidly removing those large numbers that have accumulated in the area and start to spread to surrounding areas. So that's kind of the scenario that we're dealing with, that we have been dealing with in Mendota, and it's the scenario that we're dealing with in Sassoon Marsh right now. So lag before detection, lots of reproduction. When we detect them, we come in and we have a lot of numbers that we're removing very quickly. So to break down the distribution of those numbers taken by county, and again, you guys have these in your handout, so I won't drill on this too much, but I'll just note that, Merced County continues to be our big hotspot. Fresno County is a hotspot as well and continues to be, and those numbers are growing pretty rapidly. I think last week we had 33 nutria removed from a location in Fresno County within one day, 33 animals on one day. And then the other numbers are staying fairly steady, but I'll note that Solano County, Sassoon Marsh area, those numbers continue to rack up as we work our way through those properties, as we go. This graphic is another way to look at take in the counties. And again, this is a lot to deal with, so let me try to talk you through here. But this is looking at trends in take within each county over time. So I'm going to point you to a few noteworthy counties that we're going to focus on here, which is Merced in purple. Fresno County is the darker shade of blue, and Solano is in white. This is where we've seen the bulk of take from 2023, 24, and 25. I do think it's worth noting the trend lines for Stanislaus County, which has really dropped off since 2022, as well as San Joaquin County in orange, which has also dropped off since 21. I will just openly admit that I am always assuming we've got to be missing locations in San Joaquin County. I strongly believe that we have areas that we've not been able to get into, or where we've just not gotten detections that are serving as sort of a source or a stop along the way to elsewhere, which is how we have ended up with the animals up in Sherman Island area and eventually over to Sassoon as well. I'm going to shift gears a little bit here and talk about our resources. Currently, we've been maintaining a field staff of about 45 permanent and temporary staff. Currently, we've got 20 permanent and 23 temporary staff on. At that staffing level, I mentioned that on average, we're able to survey about 164,000 acres each year. That is out of the 500,000 acres of suitable and connected habitat that we have documented that are distributed throughout a 2 million acre project area. So I will also note that we are concurrent with those survey efforts. We're trapping in anywhere from about 150 to 200 different cells also. And on average, it's taking us about 7.5 months to be able to clear an infested cell, but in about 10% of those cells, which are in the more densely infested areas, some of those locations are taking us upwards of 2.5 years to be able to clear. So thinking about the amount of time investment that it takes us within those cells where we've got trapping duties and trying to juggle those with survey efforts as well. So really what this represents for us is ultimately a resource limitation that results in a trade-off between trapping those existing infestations versus surveying in other locations to which nutria may disperse, establish, and start reproducing, that then leads to additional new workload on the landscape. And that impending workload only increases with the amount of time that it takes us to be able to detect them and respond, because you guys have heard me preach about the reproductive rate of these guys. The obligatory funding slide. In terms of funding, for our current staff and operations, we currently still have 3 funding sources, but I'll note that 2 of those expire in this fiscal year. So the first Prop 1 grant that we received from the Delta Conservancy expired a few years ago. Since that time, we've been carried with, we have a budget change. We have a budget coming in from the state general fund, which is ongoing. and supports 10 of our PYs. 6 of those are field positions. So that's ongoing and will continue moving forward. In this fiscal year, the other 2 funds that we have that will be expiring are the current Prop 1 grant that we have from the Conservancy that will expire and be close to exhausted in March. And then we had also received another budget appropriation from state general funds that was a short-term 3-year appropriation that also expires at the end of this fiscal year. I will also note that we do have a cooperative agreement in place with the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'll say that they have been really fantastic partners in our fight against the Nutria infestation in California, and any opportunity that they get to support our operations or to funnel some funding to us for field ops or any discrete resources, they have done so. So right now we have a cooperative agreement with them for $100,000 for some field equipment. And I know that they're also looking for opportunities to be able to support us as much as they can moving forward. But I don't think anybody in this room is a stranger to the budget issues we're facing at the federal and the state level. I will also note that with recent amendments and proposed amendments to the Federal Nutria Eradication and Control Act, there had been a lot of talk and discussion and speculation around whether or not that would come to fruition as a potential funding source for our operations here in the state. And I will just note that that has not come to fruition. So I'll note that we do not have funding from the feds out of that legislation. And we quite frankly don't anticipate that being a viable option to support us in the future. On the topic of budgets, California's budget cuts and position freezes, we have not gone unscathed as far as our general funds are involved. So we have experienced an 8% cut to our operating expenses from those general funds, as well as 2 of our permanent positions have been frozen, and we expect to lose those permanent positions as well. Looking ahead, and you've heard a bit of this from me before, but in order for us to be successful, we require stable funding and adequate staffing levels. We need adequate access on the ground to be able to put every nutria at risk, and we need to be able to work as efficiently as possible covering the landscape. So regarding funding, we are currently evaluating all potential options for maintaining funding for our operations, and either maintaining current staffing levels or expanding to the levels that we believe are necessary for success. In terms of maximizing efficiency, I do have a couple of updates on the detector dogs and Judas Nutria project, both of which have been funded through one grant or the other, both realistically through the Prop 1 grants. So on the Nutria scat detector dogs, following completion of the initial field trials, the detector dogs have now made the first 3 2-week visits to California, with the next 2 trips planned for September and October. We've used them to conduct surveys in Sassoon Marsh and several other locations in the Delta, including Sherman Island, Dutch Slough, Calhoun Cut, Walthall Slough, and Denverton. We have also really been using them to focus on our perimeter to help us search for areas where small number of animals could have potentially dispersed. Those sites include, for a couple of examples, Napa-Sonoma marshes, no detections in the area, and also locations in Kings County where we did have some noteworthy new detections. In the Judas Nutria project, after multiple trials over the last year seeking to improve survival rates of the nutria that we've brought in for the project, and evaluations of attachment materials and methods, I'm very excited to say that we finally have a new batch of animals that we've deployed out on the landscape with the new transmitters. We're seeing successful collection and transmission of data from 2 of those animals. Let's see. Sorry, I lost my notes here. Those animals were deployed at 2 of them on Volta Wildlife Area in Merced County, one of them on Sherman Island and the other on Joyce Island. We're seeing movement on the landscape and successful collection and transmission of data from the two animals that are in the Delta. We're still challenged with remote data transmissions down in the grasslands area in Merced County. As we've experienced before, it's sort of a common issue with satellite coverage and passovers there, but we're optimistic that those units are gonna work decently down in that area, just with facing delays in the transmissions of data. But based on how these trial deployments go, we're hoping to start being able to scale up and get more animals out on the landscape to help us locate what would otherwise be undetected animals. And with that, I just again want to thank the Delta Conservancy for all of your support over the years in this operation, and I suspect your continued interest and engagement moving forward. With that, I am happy to take any questions that we have time for.
Great, thank you. Questions? Yes.
Very much for your presentation and for your being here, and you know, I'm very impressed with all the program, your program's activities, the years to date, putting all this together. I know it's not easy. I do have a question that I'm sure has been asked a few previously, and that is, how do you define success in nutria eradication? What is the end game? I personally think that you'll not be able to eradicate all the nutria and get back to pre-nutria days. So how do you view what success is?
I will say that our program was established with the objective of complete eradication from the state of California. I think if there, and as you've heard me allude to in point two, I would say at our current staffing levels, we will be greatly challenged with being successful in eradication at our current resource levels. I think moving forward, if we maintain current levels, we will be in a position to make progress at a slow rate, if not continuing to lose ground. So I think for us, the objective is and has always been eradication from the state of California. If there is any change in that objective moving forward, where we make a shift and decide that this is a control or a management effort, that is a decision that's going to have to be made at the department and the agency level. So I think for us, we continue on with the eradication objective, and that is what we consider success. But we're also being realistic about what it takes to get there. And, you know, we will either be able to get the resources needed or maintain the resources needed to reach success, or we will all have to take a hard look at what the alternative is and how we redefine.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Just as a follow-up to that, Valerie, is there, I mean, obviously as staffing becomes constrained and you know, the dispersion that happens from natural events, is there a possibility, or would it make sense to, you know, adopt an isolationist strategy that tries to keep the nutria, I mean, focus on eradicating out of the Delta and keep them in the South Valley, and then focus on eradicating them in the South Valley? I mean, is there a divide and conquer strategy that might work?
I'm gonna point back to those resource limitations that I have mentioned about the trade-off between where we trap and where we survey. Because if we try to isolate and really kind of build a boundary, right? Like you shall not pass.
Yeah.
That's a resource allocation. And that comes at the expense of being able to trap and remove the animals that we know are there, that are just breeding and sending more. And those are going to other new locations. And then that's more locations we have to find and maintain to prevent them from going elsewhere. So it's a circular, it's a trade-off, where we've got to be able to do both to prevent losing ground. And so that's, you know, the position that we sit in, is one comes at the expense of the other. And how do we make best decisions? And I'll note that, you know, those decisions may look a little different based on where they are on the landscape. So for example, early strategies for the San Joaquin River and Stanislaus County were, in Merced County, protect the delta, right? San Joaquin River corridor, this is the priority, protect the delta. So we prioritized Stanislaus County, Merced County, and we put Fresno County on the back burner. We knew animals were in Mendota, small numbers, and we put them on the back burner because that was the lowest risk to the delta. And now we're seeing the explosion that occurred in those numbers from just unchecked reproduction for multiple years. And those animals have now dispersed, and we've got detections in the Kings River in Kings County. We have them all the way up to Friant Dam in Millerton. So we see that there are implications to those decisions and those strategies as well. So certainly an uphill battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't envy the task. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thanks for the report, and I imagine your job can be pretty frustrating, knowing it's resource limited. One question, is there a model out there where private landowners can be taking action so that it's not just on the state to be doing all the work? Is that model worked anywhere else?
So private landowner management, there is no model in terms of eradication. Local control, yes. I will say there's a little bit of a balancing act here and a double-edged sword to partnering with landowners. I think it's fantastic to be able to partner with landowners. We want to partner with landowners. I think for folks that are out on the ground and familiar with the wildlife that are on their properties, I'll say we have a spectrum of familiarity with wildlife on the ground. And we have a lot of landowners, particularly in wetlands management and the duck clubs, that know very well if they're looking at an otter or a beaver or a muskrat or a mink or a nutria. They know, they're familiar, and we can rely on them to assist in that management, help control, report to us when they find nutria, and that's a really great partnership for us. But at the other end of the spectrum, we also have folks who cannot reliably distinguish among the species, and then we're at risk of, potentially wiping out every brown animal that's swimming. So it's a little bit of a balancing act and enlisting the help of landowners and hunters. So, and that's, to an extent, better outreach can assist there, but I think it's always going to be a little bit of a risk. But ultimately one, we may have to some extent, may have to take.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thanks all. Take care.
Okay, that brings us on to item 14, which is the DWR Multi-Benefit Restoration Program update.
Good morning. I'm online today. Charlotte Biggs with DWR. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director of our Natural Infrastructure and Ecosystem Resilience portfolio. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm getting over a bit of a cold, so sparing you all from that. Just a quick update today. Not a lot new since my last update in May when I was there last, but just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the highlights and major updates for our multi-benefit projects in the Delta. So starting first with the Consumnes River Preserve and the Grizzly Slough Restoration Project, which is one that the Conservancy has provided a Prop 1 grant for. So I like to start with that one. The project's over 400 acres of habitat, and we are continuing to move forward, planning to breach the site this year. So we have a restrictive in-water work window that would be this fall. So we're planning to breach the site then, and that would complete the project construction. So that's one to flag maybe for Campbell and Karen and others as a future site visit or something for this for the board. So that might be nice for next spring. And then moving over to the YOLO bypass, just quick updates there. The Fremont Weir Big Notch, which is a floodplain salmon rearing habitat project. Not a lot new since the last update. We're completing our inspections and commissioning efforts of the new operable gates that were installed at the Weir. We're hoping to be able to operate this winter. There's a lot of moving parts with real estate and flowage easements and all that needs to be worked through. So that's our target, and we'll see how that goes. And then moving down the bypass to Tides End, which is a proposed floodplain and tidal wetland restoration project in the southern bypass. The project concept also includes some managed wetlands and continuing wildlife-friendly agriculture. We're pushing hard to get a draft EIR out later this year or by the end of this year on the project. We're working on a supplemental EIR, so we're tearing off the statewide restoration general order programmatic EIR, but it's still a pretty labor-intensive effort to do all this site-specific analysis and modeling and all that. So hoping to get that out this year for review and comment. So I'll keep you updated on that. And then Lookout Slough, which is DWR's largest tidal wetland restoration project in the Delta and also within the bypass. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the breach and completion of that project. So I'm starting to plan some updated videos, photos, and other things that we'll probably put out September, October to sort of celebrate that anniversary. So I can share those with you when they're ready, but great kind of educational materials or things to share with folks. Moving across the bypass to Prospect, tidal wetland restoration project. We're in our 2nd year of construction on that project, and that will be completed next year. So the breaching will be next summer. So this year construction is focusing on dewatering, the interior channel construction of the berms and habitat bench, and then the revegetation planting as well. So expecting to complete that project next year. And then the Little Egbert Tract project, which is 3,000 acres at the very bottom of the bypass, just north of Rio Vista. This is a proposed multi-benefit project that would provide floodplain, tidal, as well as subtidal habitat, and really focuses on managing the transition of this site because it is behind a restricted height levee that provides about 10 years of protection. So we'd like to manage that transition to provide increased flood protection and habitat. And so we are working on the draft EIR for that project, hoping to get that out early next year. So just kind of keeping you up to date on that project as it moves forward. And then lastly, I'll finish with Dutch Slough, which is in Contra Costa County in Oakley. You probably recall we completed phase 1 a couple years ago. That was over 700 acres, and the site is really thriving. We got some updated photos of that, and I'm working on an updated kind of digital article that's going to go out as an update on that project. And now we're really focusing on the 2nd phase of that, which is known as the Burrows parcel, which is the 3rd parcel on that site. And we're moving that forward through planning and design. That's about 450 acres. So that's my update for today. Thanks so much again for having me and having DWR here to provide these updates. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any in the room, any online? No, great update. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, that brings us on to item 15, which is the Delta Stewardship Council update. Amanda Bowl.
Good. Amanda Bowl, Special Assistant for Planning and Science at the Delta Stewardship Council. I have just a couple of updates. You may recall when I was last here, I mentioned that the council would soon be voting on its Delta Ops Adaptation Plan. That did happen at our June council meeting just a month ago.
And this is significant because it is the first ever comprehensive regional climate adaptation plan for the Delta. This is part of the council's Delta Adapts initiative, which has been a multi-year initiative and included a vulnerability assessment, which preceded the development of the adaptation plan. The adaptation plan itself details strategies and actions to improve regional resilience to climate change across 4 focus areas: flood risk reduction, ecosystems, agriculture, and water supply reliability. The plan also identifies equity considerations of adaptation, costs, and governance challenges. And so with the adoption of the adaptation plan, staff is now focused on considering how to structure implementation. We're anticipating a kind of a first step with that will be the development of a Delta-specific climate collaborative. And I know we've met with a number of staff from both the Conservancy and I think the Protection Commission and probably many of your counties as well. And we will plan to continue to reach out and to do that coordination with state and local agencies as this continues to be developed. So more to come on that. And I'm thinking as we continue to develop that, that might be a good thing for us to come back to the Conservancy Board to present on specifically as that moves forward. The other thing I want to mention regarding climate change is that our staff is also supporting the state's 5th climate assessment report. And it's my understanding we've also been working with Conservancy staff and Protection Commission staff on that as well. And we're really just trying to make sure that there's more of a mention of the Delta in this 5th climate assessment. In the past, there hasn't been much, so we're just trying to increase that a little bit more. The second, the council is meeting tomorrow at the Resources Agency building. Our meeting starts at 9:30 in the morning. We'll be hearing from the Sacramento Area Council of Governments on their draft 2025 Metropolitan Transportation Plan / Sustainable Communities Plan. So if you're curious about that, please tune in. Also on the agenda is an overview of the council's covered action appeals process. So just as a reminder, the Delta Reform Act established a certification process for demonstrating consistency with the Delta plan, and we refer to this as our covered actions process. And a really integral part of this process is the appeals process. And so we just like every so often like to just very publicly kind of try to explain what that process is, because anyone is able to appeal any project that is filed as consistent with the Delta plan. So again, if you are curious about that, if your staff is curious about that process, this would be a good thing to tune into as well tomorrow. And then also our staff is always available to talk to you, to your staffs, with others about our appeals process and about Delta DAFs and anything else. So feel free to reach out to me if you think that there might be helpful to have that kind of a check-in. And then just one other note about covered actions. We do not currently have any active covered actions, so nothing to report there. I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Any questions about the Stewardship Council? Any online? Okay, thank you so much. That brings us up to item 16. Mr. Ray, you are up.
Thank you. Here, reserve.
Yes. In the hot seat.
Doesn't look very hot to me, just warm. Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Ray. I'm the interim executive officer at the Delta Protection Commission. I was for many years on the staff of the Stewardship Council, and before that with the CalFed program. So I just back up on the Protection Commission while they search for my replacement. We've got a few things underway. Principally, right now, a big effort is in standing up our new National Heritage Area. You all maybe have heard the Congress designated the Delta as one of, I think it's about 25 National Heritage Areas nationwide. And it is an interesting program. It was sort of like Ronald Reagan's alternative to a national park. And how could you create a grassroots, locally led program that didn't involve a great deal of federal land ownership, but truly local people were saying, these are our valuable assets, and we're the ones who are going to develop an interpretive and conservation program, both history and culture. And the Delta Reform Act actually directed the Delta Protection Commission to seek approval of the Delta as a national heritage area. That law passed maybe 4 years ago. And now we've spent the last couple of years developing an implementation plan for that, which the Secretary of Interior approved in this past winter. And now we're trying to stand it up. What is that implement? How do we get that implementation plan actually underway? Initially, like many, we're sort of waiting on the next increment of our federal funding, and part of the promise in these programs is you go through the pain of planning and then ultimately you'll get money to implement the plan. The good news is that the Office of Management Budget released 24-25 funds for the program. There was some question, would it even be, the appropriated funds even be released, but they've been released, and now we're just waiting to hear from the National Park Service, what our allocation will be. We were anticipating up to $500,000, but we'll have to see what proceeds out of that. On the House Appropriations Subcommittee side, they have approved a budget for the program for the coming year, and so that's good news too. If we can get established, then I think we'll be in good shape. With funds we have, one of the key things we're doing is developing a partnership program. We don't, the agency that manages it doesn't really have the resources in any of these cases nationwide to carry it out. So we work in partnership with local partners, whether it's a community park department or with state parks or with a historical society, other sorts of local partners, local businesses, to implement the program. And so initially, we're developing partnership agreements with, we have about 20 so far. And that'll be the basis for a passport program. If you're a National Park Service visitor, you know that when you go to the visitor center, if you've got one of their little fake passports, you can get a stamp that proves you were there. And apparently it's a popular program in heritage areas as well, because people sort of like collecting trading cards. People want the whole set. And so, I'm going to California, I'm driving through this national heritage area, where can I get the stamp? And our colleagues in other areas say libraries are a good site because they're open almost all the time. And a lot of our visitor centers in the Delta are open only sporadically. And so we're developing among the partnerships agreements with the county library systems and local library systems. And those are almost all in place. And to make that a little more meaningful, we've had for years a Delta reading list available on our website. So we're gonna do a little stand-up display that the county libraries can have that focus on, hey, what are some of the great Delta resources that you can read about? And it starts back with Jack London, and Joan Didion's got a great book about the Delta, and but you got more modern publications. Bitter Melon is a great description of life in Locke in the last century. So that'll be rolled out over the next couple of months, like we expect. And then we've brought on board a consultant with funds we've already had to develop a marketing program that'll really give us more detailed guidance about how to move ahead. And so I think we're looking forward to that. We have got small pots of money now that we're using for mini grants. Maybe they're minuscule grants that we're sharing with local events, primarily, whether it's the Duck Festival at the Yola Bypass, or the Pear Fair, or the Asian Spring Festival and Locks, just so they got a little bit of sponsorship money, and we get the name of the National Heritage Area out through that. So that's what's underway there. But my successor, when they're aboard, I think they'll be coming to talk with the Conservancy about how we can work together. I mean, an expectation of the overall national program is that the federal funds will be matched with local dollars. And almost any project that you guys fund is going to be looked at by the Park Service. Hey, this helps carry out this program. And so that's an opportunity, and federal money is one of the sources of funds we have to provide grants to local partners. So if we could get that at the upper end, it might be worthwhile identifying 2 or 3 things where, hey, our money can help make a difference, especially on some of these bottom-up projects. And that would be nice to be able to look at. So I think that'll be a task for my successor. We also have been involved in trying to get a handle on what the habitat restoration and flood control projects that are going forward in the Delta, how they're affecting the farmlands that are remaining in production. So we drafted a report that really so far it takes more of a planning perspective. I know the Stewardship Council is tracking projects that have been completed. And I think they showed about 8,000 acres, if I remember right, of completed projects. But what we did was we looked at not only what's been completed, but what's in the wings. You know, what are projects for which environmental impact reports have been drafted? What are projects where preliminary funds have been allocated? What other things are we hearing about? And so that left us with a total of almost 50 square miles of habitat and flood control restoration actions in the Delta, which surprised people. The number was that big, and we got to go back and sit down. That doesn't include. That's based on the parcel size and the zoning of the site. So some of those lands are probably going to remain in production. You know, some kind of wildlife friendly agriculture. Some maybe never been in production or haven't been in production recently, but maybe footprints and things like that that need to get backed out. We'll be doing that over the coming month. But we use this then to have a couple listening sessions with the farmers and reclamation districts in the Delta, and those were really interesting to me. People were very grateful to have the chance to talk about what was going on. You know, because I've been involved in this for a long time, I've said one thing coming back is things that were always on the horizon when I was working previously, now they're imminent. And in some cases they've happened. And the mitigation measures and kind of guidance policies that are in the Delta plan and in our own plan, were based more on worries about what projects might do rather than real experience. So what we heard, and I think I got to give you guys at the Conservancy and others that are sponsoring these projects some credit. We didn't get a lot of, oh, this is terrible. You know, you've really put my farm out of business remarks, you know. There were a few problems. There's a couple examples of seepage, but where that was occurring, people were like, well, you know, the project sponsor is working with us and, you know, we think we're going to be able to address it in time. The most interesting and I think unanticipated concern was about invasive species and sort of nuisance wildlife, where it's an example of somebody who had their fruit trees in their orchard chewed out by beavers that they thought, oh, it came from that adjoining restoration site. When that was being farmed, that never would have happened. But beavers are protected now, and they weren't couple of years ago. So it's not so easily controlled as it might have been in the past. Nutria was a concern, you know, as we're creating more managed wetlands, we're creating more Nutria habitat. And what are we doing to make sure that there's controls on those infestations? We've got, you know, right now, that's an example of had we really anticipated impacts that might occur. Both, I think, our own policies, but I know the Stewardship Council's policies require invasive species management plans as part of restoration proposals. But at least my experience, those were mostly thought of as how do we control bass that might be eating listed fish. I don't know that they've actually got provisions in them that say, hey, here's how we're going to make sure we don't create a new site for invasion, or do we make it easy for landowners to control nuisance beavers or nuisance muskrats? So certainly one of the biggest disasters we've had in the Delta was caused by apparently a muskrat, you know, back on the flood on the island there in the 2002, I think. So we'll look a little bit at that, but I thought that was overall was good news. People were mostly concerned rather about the long-term trajectory of Delta agriculture. Farming in the state's under a lot of pressure right now from, you know, rising input costs, labor, markets are disrupted. People in the San Joaquin Valley are all struggling with groundwater issues. And so people feel under a lot of pressure. And I think one of the key comments that was made was like, well, where is a tipping point? We've gone too far. You know, there's been so much land taken out of production that we start to lose essential infrastructure. And that's a good question. And how we would go about that is a good question too. You know, I see that in the San Joaquin Valley, the Department of Conservation is working with groundwater agencies that have to fallow land to help them develop locally based strategies to kind of understand where they can find multiple benefits over the long run. And I think that maybe approach would work well in the Delta, since it's starts with farmers and it's a bottom-up approach. And I can't imagine a lot of our growers are as independent minded, as cranky as some of those are down in the San Joaquin Valley. So I think that's my next conversation about that issue. But this will be an ongoing process. I hope we're going to put it out for a 45-day review period, the report later this week. And so it'll be up to my successor to carry that forward. And I guess that's the last point, is I am the interim executive director. And so my first priority has been to, you know, shorten the duration of my work. Both my wife and I are like, really, how long are you going to be there? I told her I would probably be working through the 4th of July, and now I worry it looks more like Labor Day. But we're starting to review resumes. There's a little subcommittee of our commissioners that are this afternoon going to sit down with a stack of resumes, starting to, you know, sort through them and see who they want to interview. So I'm hopeful that that'll get wrapped up soon enough. And then you'll have somebody who's more up to speed with what's really happening in the Delta, and we'll be here for the duration to see things ahead. But I appreciate the invitation to come and talk with you. I worked with Campbell back in the day. We shared a cubby, I think. You know, an electrical closet, if I remember. So things have come a long way since then, and it's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about the DPC? Well, I'll just say, as a commissioner on the DPC, Dan has been a breath of fresh air, and we appreciate him giving up time with his garden and his grandkids to come back and do a little work for us. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, item 17, Delta Conveyance update. Barry Buckman.
Good afternoon. I am joining remotely. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I have a couple of updates on Delta Conveyance this morning. I wanted to start with permitting updates, and the main permitting activity that we have going on right now is our water rights process. So as part of the Delta Conveyance project, we are looking for a change in point of diversion for our state water project water rights. It is not a change in the water right quantity or timing. It's just it's adding 2 points of diversion to that water right. So the process is underway, and we finished making our case in chief that this change would not adversely affect other beneficial users of water or fish and wildlife. And now the protestants that are engaged in this process are making their case in chief. So they've submitted their documents, and the next phase of the hearing starts on August 12th and has dates continuing currently through mid-October. So that's going to be a pretty major focus over the next few months. Our other permitting process that is close to starting is that we're getting ready to submit our certification of consistency with the Delta plan, and we're looking to do that later this year. So that's an effort that we're finishing to develop and compile. The one other effort I wanted to mention is something that's important to us, that we want to make sure that as we move through this effort, that we are maintaining accountability to the community and some transparency in what we're doing. So we've identified a number of programs and we've grouped them together in what we're calling our accountability action plan. And they include a number of things that were mentioned in the EIR, but perhaps not with a lot of detail. So we're working to flesh out the ombudsman program. We'll have an ombudsman office and how that office would work and interact with different programs. We're going to have an effort to have some transparency in our mitigation and monitoring program. We have the community benefits program, which I have talked to you guys a number of times about, but we've developed additional guidelines and revised those guidelines based on community input. We have community advisory groups that we will convene to try to help with final design. So looking at things like where access roads are and what the visual changes are in the area, and looking at ways that we can continue to push to reduce effects through the final design process. And then just overall communications, making sure that we provide regular communications and try to have outreach on a regular basis. So those efforts are getting packaged together, and we're going to be releasing more information soon, probably this month or next month. So those are the key updates on the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Nothing in the room, anyone online? Okay, easy peasy, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that brings us to last check for public comment. Anything good for the good of the order? Seeing nobody, we are adjourned.